Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking the hidden mechanics of human momentum. Look, if you've ever stared at a blinking cursor for an hour, or suddenly found yourself, deep cleaning your entire kitchen just to avoid writing a single email, you were absolutely in the right place. We've got some incredibly powerful source material to go through today. It fundamentally shifts how we view our daily habits, and more importantly, it helps us figure out how to stop being our own bottleneck. So let's jump straight in.
Okay, let's kick things off with a question that honestly might sting a bit to hear. When you wait and stall and endlessly scroll on your phone, is it actually just laziness? I mean, we all have those moments, right? You sit down to do the hard thing, you stare at a blank screen, you casually pick up your phone, and you tell yourself, oh, I'll start in just 5 minutes. But let's seriously question that label we always slap on this behavior. Are you actually just lazy? Or is there something much, much deeper going on under the surface? The source material hits us right between the eyes with this profound truth. Procrastination isn't about laziness at all. It's a shield. You avoid tasks to protect your ego from the terrifying pressure and, frankly, the fear of failure. Your brain is essentially prioritizing short-term emotional protection over your long-term goals. It's this highly evolved defense mechanism designed to keep you comfortable and completely safe from the vulnerability of trying your absolute hardest. Think about it. If you pour your energy into something and fail, you can't blame a lack of time anymore, right? So you use the concept of soon as this clever psychological trap to avoid those feelings altogether. If you wait until the last minute, you always have a built-in excuse. The fear, the doubt, the pressure, they're all kept perfectly at bay as long as you just remain comfortably inactive.
Section 1. The Truth About Procrastination. Section 2. The Invisible Backpack Weight. Let's look at the toll of those tiny tasks.
The really crucial point our source makes here is that your mental exhaustion rarely comes from giant, overwhelming projects. It actually comes from these tiny, ignored tasks stacking up like pebbles in a backpack. That text message you didn't answer yesterday, the notification you mindlessly swiped away without actually dealing with it, the 20 browser tabs left open on your laptop like this giant graveyard of good intentions. Individually, each of these things weighs absolutely nothing. But after a week of accumulating them, you're dragging around a massive invisible weight, wondering why on earth you feel completely exhausted and burned out by noon.
And because that mountain of real work, combined with your heavy backpack of uncompleted tiny tasks, feels so wildly intimidating, your brain just panics. It gets trapped in this high-stimulation loop, practically begging for cheap dopamine from your phone. You look at the heavy backpack, you look at the mountain of the actual project, and your brain screams for an escape hatch. So it opts for the cheap dopamine. It opts for the endless, hollow, totally unfulfilling scroll, just hoping to find enough distraction to forget about the mountain.
Section 3. Rule 1. 2-minute momentum. Taking that first step.
So how do we break this agonizing cycle? Well, your brain doesn't need to climb the entire mountain. It literally just needs to take the first damn step. And to do that, we introduce the first actionable rule to rewire your brain, the 2-minute momentum rule. You give a scary task just 2 intensely focused minutes. This acts as a psychological permission slip to begin without any of the pressure. Just think about why this works. You are drastically lowering the stakes. You're telling your ego, hey, look, we aren't writing a whole massive report today. We are literally just typing for 120 seconds and then we can quit. Because the threat level is so incredibly low, your ego doesn't feel the need to deploy that procrastination shield we talked about earlier. It just entirely bypasses the fear of failure.
It's exactly like jumping into a freezing cold lake. The initial shock is the hardest part, right? But within seconds, it fades. You quickly realize a fundamental truth of human psychology here. Action creates momentum, which in turn creates the motivation you were endlessly waiting for. The first 2 minutes are the psychological wall most people just never climb over. But remember, action creates momentum. You don't sit around and wait for motivation to strike from the heavens like a bolt of lightning. You force it into existence through a tiny, almost ridiculous, 2-minute window of intentional action. And the magic is, those 2 minutes organically turn into 5, then 15, and suddenly you're in the zone and the work is flowing.
Section 4. Rule 2. Do it now. It's all about removing task friction.
This rule is how we play direct defense against that invisible weight, those pebbles in the backpack we talked about earlier. If an action takes less than 2 minutes, you just own it and do it immediately. Remove the friction right then and there. Think about it. If you open an email, read it, and think, I'll reply to this later, you have literally just added a fresh pebble to your bag. The exact moment you see a task, if your internal clock says it's under 2 minutes, it gets executed on the spot. No filing it away for tomorrow, no marking it unread to artificially deal with it later, you handle it right now.
I mean, even something as shockingly small as tying your shoelaces the moment you notice them loose instantly stops mental weight from accumulating. It sounds a little silly, right? Like, why does tying a shoe matter to your grand life goals? But the source material is highlighting a profound psychological truth here. Every single time you step over a mess on the floor or ignore a loose thread, you are quietly training your brain to tolerate incompletion. You're actively normalizing friction and disorder in your environment, and that bleeds directly into how you handle your biggest, most important projects.
On the flip side, every time you close a browser tab or complete a bite-sized task in spite of your boredom or resistance, you aren't just getting things done. You are building undeniable proof that you can do hard things. This is the secret engine operating underneath the 2-minute rule. You are actively collecting daily, hourly evidence that you are a person of action. You're someone who acts in spite of friction. And that undeniable proof becomes the firm foundation of your confidence moving forward.
Because as the source emphasizes so powerfully, if you don't act instantly, regret will eventually replace your goals. Later becomes never, and never becomes regret. Honestly, later is genuinely the most dangerous word in the English language when it comes to your personal momentum. The very moment you stop saying later, you immediately start saving your future self from the incredibly heavy, suffocating burden of regret. Section 5. The 1% Identity and how to change your story. Habits are great, sure, but identity? Identity is what actually sustains you when things get overwhelmingly difficult. Your brain believes exactly what you show it repeatedly, so you must change your internal story. Think of your brain basically like a lawyer. It's constantly looking for evidence to prove your identity right. If you walk around calling yourself a procrastinator, your inner lawyer will work overtime to validate that identity by making you procrastinate even more. You have to consciously re-author that narrative using the proof you've been building with your swift, 2-minute actions.
One really powerful way our source material suggests doing this is by keeping a hard things journal. And hey, this isn't some complex diary. It's simply a place where you log the times you chose action over avoidance. Did you send that dreaded email? Write it down. Did you start the spreadsheet when you really just wanted to scroll? Log it. By documenting your wins, you constantly prove to yourself that discipline is the anchor that remains long after the sugar rush of motivation completely fades. Motivation is just a feeling, and feelings are famously fickle. But discipline, rooted in this shifted identity, is a completely immovable anchor.
Now here's the crazy math behind all this momentum. If you stop trying to fix your entire life overnight and instead just focus on becoming 1% better every single day using these micro habits, you will be exactly 37 times better by this time next year. Just let that sink in for a second. Not 37% better, 37 times better. That is the sheer, undeniable power of compounding momentum, built exclusively off of simple 2-minute choices. Ultimately, we arrive at this pretty stark reality. Nobody is coming to save you. You basically have two choices here. You can take the comfortable path that inevitably leaves you feeling empty, or you can take the uncomfortable path of growth. Because no one is going to suddenly sweep in and make your life better. It is entirely 100% on your shoulders. And honestly, that should be empowering. The people you admire out in the world, they aren't superhuman. They just stayed in motion longer, and they absolutely refuse to negotiate with their goals.
So let the rest of the world sleep on themselves. Don't wait for the magical right time. And please don't try to be a superhero in a single day. The only question left to answer is this. Will you set a timer and start your 2 minutes right now? Because your future self is watching, and they are begging you to take the first step.